Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Kentucky Small Business Development Center's weekly webinar. We're glad you're here today. As we allow attendees a few minutes to join our event, I'd like to share some info about the Kentucky Small Business Development Center. As the only statewide, nationally accredited program that provides entrepreneurial and business development services, the Kentucky SBDC plays a vital role in the Commonwealth's economic development by assisting entrepreneurs at every stage of their business life cycle. For almost 40 years, the Kentucky SBDC has assisted emerging and growing businesses by providing the professional expertise, tools, and information necessary to make sound business decisions in a complex and ever-changing marketplace. We do this at no cost to our clients thanks to the U.S. Small Business Administration, who co-sponsors our program, which is then administered by the University of Kentucky, who partners with regional universities, colleges, and local economic development agencies. We're also part of a national network, America's SBDC, with over 1,000 centers across the nation. To learn more, visit kybizhelp.com. There you'll find additional resources to help start, fund, and grow your business. To request personal assistance, email us at info@kybizhelp.com or just give us a call at 1-888-475-7232. Just a little reminder, a recording of today's webinar will be emailed to you this afternoon. And if you look to the right of your screen, you'll find the chat feature. So as we go along today, if you have any questions for our presenter, you can post them there and we'll answer them at the end of the presentation. If you would, please try it out right now by saying hello and telling us where you're from. We're always glad to hear that. I'm Dave Etkin. I'm the Center Director of the Louisville Small Business Development Center, which is one of 17 centers all around Kentucky. And with me today is Tony Sears, our Assistant Center Director. Hey, Tony.
Hi, David.
Today, we're going back to talking a little bit about marketing today. And our guest today is Randy Blevins, who is also a Louisville native, like Tony and I. He started Think Tank Louisville, and he provides social media marketing strategies and other online creative content. The Think Tank is a fully integrated marketing solutions company and does a lot of things. Interestingly enough, he works a lot with touring Broadway productions, which is pretty interesting. And Randy, I have to thank you. You were a guest speaker at one of our Scale Up classes a couple weeks ago. You were a big hit. Everybody loved you so much. I thought we need to bring you back. And let's talk on the Wednesday webinar. So welcome, Randy. I'm glad to see you today.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
So let's just jump right in. And again, if you have any questions, let's tap into him today.
Cool. Yes, thanks so much. Welcome, everybody. I'm seeing a lot of people and where they're from in the chat from Cincinnati, Virginia. Wow, I thought this was more Kentucky-centric, so cool. I'm so glad everybody's here. I hope you don't have too much election fatigue. We were talking about that before we go live and when everybody got to bed, so hopefully you're being a little bit more productive than I am today. I'm happy to have this to kind of pull me out of being obsessive about that. I will say that I don't really like to lecture. If I did, I would have become a teacher. So please, if you are so inclined as I'm talking, I know that there's some kind of a delay that they were telling me, but please put your questions in the chat as we're going through this, and they will interrupt me as needed. So at least maybe we can have some kind of dialogue that way. I'm used to seeing faces and, chatting with people. So today we will cover a bunch of topics that, quite frankly, have hundreds and hundreds of more hours that you can dive into more specifically for each of them. I'm going to be talking about about social-centric marketing, which is kind of our approach to marketing the businesses that we work with and even our own. And it's really about how you tell your story, and it's going to be from the perspective of doing that through social media, which is what our company is very, deeply rooted in. So I will start by just going over my background, and then we'll talk about what social-centric means. Then we'll get to the why of your business, and then shaping the story. And we'll talk about constructing the target, and that's the target audience. and then employing the tools in your arsenal. And then if you can stay all the way till the end, I'll give you a really cool bonus tip for that you can use right now to help market your business and get the word out. So a little bit about me. My background is in arts and theater. I was a theater major at my undergraduate, which was at Center College in Danville, Kentucky. I knew I was not going to be on stage, even though I was on stage back then. And if you see me looking this way, this is where my notes are. So I'm not being distracted. I'm actually looking for what I'm going to say next. But I was lucky enough to go work at Actors Theater of Louisville, which is a prestigious regional theater company. They produce the Humana Festival of New American Plays. And I was able to work in the marketing department there. I taught myself to be a graphic designer. Through my work in the arts, I've learned self-taught social media. I like to call myself the social media maestro because it has a musical connotation. But I loved working in nonprofit arts because I really believe in gathering skills. So even though I was in the marketing department, I was able to go and learn about everything else that was happening in that building, from fundraising to, play selection to the technical work that goes on behind the scenes. And I'm a huge believer that the more skills you gather, the more opportunities you create for yourself in your life. So because I was able to be a graphic designer, I went and worked for the Broadway series. And I was their art director, and I worked in several markets within that network. I think it was like 10 by the time I was done. So I really got a better perspective. And outside of Louisville, not all markets work like Louisville in Kentucky. So it was interesting to kind of find out about that. Unfortunately, as many people had happened to them in 2009, we were laid off. So I was trying to figure out what my next move was going to be. And none of the jobs that were available would even look at me without an MBA. So I went to get my MBA at Bellarmine University. I was in the executive MBA program, which was very lucky. And I was definitely low man on the totem pole there. I was even in the same class with the managing director of Actors Theater at that time. And I learned so much from them. Starting a business was not even on my radar. But that program was very much geared towards making CEOs successful, and learning from my colleagues and from the wonderful faculty there. And watching what was happening with social media back in 2010, about 10 years ago, thinking that was going to be a really great tool for businesses to use to market their businesses, I started Think Tank. We called ourselves Think Tank Louisville. And we started just doing social media, but found very quickly that as it was brand new to the marketplace, people were skeptical, and they didn't feel like that they could pay us to get a return out of that. So I was able to use all the skills that I'd learned in marketing throughout my career to formulate a more inclusive agency. So today we are fully integrated. We are an advertising marketing agency, and we do everything from traditional media and advertising, ad spends, to handling social media content, to email, to press and media relations, you name it. So, and it's very tailored to our clients. And I'm going to talk about those clients a little bit during this presentation. Of course, COVID hit this year, and we lost about half our business because we are rooted in the arts and performing arts, which are not performing right now. We were working with Kentucky Opera and touring Broadway shows. And so we have had to take this opportunity to really look at our business and see how we can apply the skills that we have learned to perhaps other industries. So in the downtime, we've been working on a rebrand and a retelling of our messaging, which is really the thrust of this presentation, because it's really the first time that we've put our new brand out there and what we've learned. So that's kind of where we are right now. And from what we learned, we've kind of coined the phrase social-centric marketing. And I feel like something that we've always been doing. But when COVID hit, we really wanted to take a look at where our successes were and why those were successes. So again, we're an advertising agency. I mean, it's a dime a dozen. There's so many advertising agencies out there. Whenever I've seen several that have just popped up during COVID because, you know, people are looking to be entrepreneurs and they're looking to start their own business. We've been very happy to be in business for 10 years and feel like we've been very successful, but we've also had our failures just like everybody else. And like I said, we wanted to know why some things worked really well with clients. And when they did, we were very successful. And then some that didn't really hit the mark. And then we wound up not working with those clients again. And perhaps if we looked at that, then maybe that would help differentiate ourselves in the marketplace. So what we learned is through an extensive, research period and working with a colleague that actually does branding services, we found out that when we were successful, it was when we aligned with clients who were very passionate, who were passionate dreamers about what they were doing, about their businesses, who wanted to share their work, their products or services with the community. They didn't really punch the 9 to 5, and they weren't really just after profits and profit share and all that. They had a really specific story, and quite frankly, they cared about what they were doing, and it matters. So, that was kind of the first clue and how we started looking at social centric marketing. It's for us, it's the approach that we learn, that we take when we're working with a client. And it's very much rooted in the social media landscape. And again, social centric can apply to social media, being social in your community, having social awareness, all of the, the civil unrest that we've seen happening. So we wanted to kind of take all of that into account when we were launching our new brand. So for us, social centric is helping our clients thrive in a social world. So if you really think about it, being social means building trust, engaging in two-way conversation, picking up on cues from other people, and analyzing those interactions. All of that kind of happens subconsciously when you're talking to a person or when you're interacting with someone. So we wanted to really look at that and define that. And it's really why we found that we align more closely with some clients than others. To take that a step further, and what we hope to do, it's really being social centric means that you are aligning and being mindful of your community and what's around you, and being authentic and participating and contributing in your community. It's when we're looking at pushing our messages out for our clients, or even coming up with what those messages are, it's a lot about listening and connecting with the public, and really asking yourself, what am I doing that can better the community or help you and figure out what you're doing. So I absolutely 100% think that now that we've defined this, that this is kind of the future of business. People and consumers want to feel good about themselves and who they do business with. And I feel like that the approach of being truly authentic and truly telling your story is what people are craving, and how they can connect with your business. So we want to tell that story, and we want to connect you to your community with all of the relationships that we've made. And we want to help your customers and your potential customers feel good about what the clients are doing. And that's our why. We care. We care about what we're doing. We care about your business. We really get ingrained. Most of the clients that we've worked with for a long time, and we really become their marketing department or their marketing arm. So that's kind of what we got to in terms of social centric. So how do we do that? We get to the why. We had to get that for our company, and it's the first thing that we do when we work with a new client. And you may have heard this before. There are lots of books written about it. Some of my colleagues say that it's overused, but I haven't really found a better way to explain it yet. But this is what we help clients do, and in my experience, I don't think you can really do it alone. Now, that doesn't mean you have to hire a huge branding firm or spend a lot of money, but I think that you do need to sit down with someone that you trust, that maybe has a little bit more communication background and kind of talk it through, because it can be tricky and it can be sometimes hard to get to. But I think it's absolutely crucial in order to do the next step, which is shape your story of your business. So in a nutshell, the why is, so there's kind of three things that we think about. So the what is your product or service. The how is the way you distribute or provide that service or product. And that gets into the areas of fulfillment, customer service, experience, that kind of stuff. But I'm not sure people are really taking the time to think about the why. They're just kind of jumping in right into, like, we need to sell, we need to make money, we need to do all these things. And sometimes that works. And that's great if people are really interested and you're just kind of intuitive that way. But a lot of we work with small businesses and we work with the arts. And this may not be the case for a large organization that has, shareholders that they're trying to appease, but most of the people that we work with are this is their dream, this is their passion project, and more times than not that they have a why. We just have to get to it. So, for example, we work with a high-end outdoor furniture company. And of course, they're trying to get people to come in and purchase these sets, and it's not an inexpensive thing. So when we sat down with them, they're talking about this line, these features, and all of that. I was like, okay, all of that is the what. We need to get you talking about why you started this business, what's the background, and by the time we were done, what we had determined is, they're not selling furniture. That's the fulfillment. They're selling a community experience. They're creating an extra room in someone's home that is outside, and that came from a different culture. The business owner had lived in California, where yes, the weather is conducive more to being outside a little bit longer in the year, but people can still take advantage of that and perhaps extend the seasons here in Kentucky. By creating this, livable outdoor space with fire pits and, weatherproof furniture. And so putting that together and creating more time with family in a meaningful way, that's their why. And we had to go through a very kind of extensive process, to get to that. And, some people, it's very easy to get to, and some people you kind of have to pull it out. So that's the very first thing we do when we sign on with a new client, and it's kind of thinking about your products in a little bit different way. And we don't just talk about the business. We talk about the person individually, their motivation for starting the business, and somewhere along the way we can usually get to that. So I feel like that's like the very first step that we have to do in order to even move forward with even talking about the business and getting that messaging together. So once you have that why, we start to shape the story. We use all of that information to craft a position for the brand. We figure out what makes your products and services different. We give them a deliverable about how we feel your brand will connect with customers. And then we also do what I like to call our tenant truths. And that's like one or two things that we know for certain about the industry and your customers as it relates to your brand. And then we come up with the brand story. And that's usually a big, long, narrative that gives that background, that history, info about the why, and all of these things then become the basis for how we figure out what the brand's voice is, what its core values is, and what the talking points are that we're then going to push out into the marketing landscape. With kind of through our rebrand, and something that we have just started doing is constructing the target, and this is the target audience. And like I said, we've just started doing this, and it can be very tedious and very daunting, but I feel like it's also very important. And what this means is that we're constructing detailed avatars and personas about who the people are we're trying to reach, who can use this product, who will find value in your service, or who needs help because of what you're doing in terms of your brand. For some businesses, this might be a very specific, narrow one target customer. But for the most part, in the companies that we work with, this is many people. And, we do this, in conjunction with the business owner, because they mostly have a sense of who their customers are. They may not have been tracking the data very often. And a lot of times we have to kind of rely on basic industry data in order to start this. So what we do is we really drill down into and talk about who is this person, what is his or her name, what Instagram accounts do they follow, who are their friends, what are they doing on the weekends, what have they been doing during quarantine, and what clothes do they buy, from where, and what magazines do they read, what blogs are they looking at. And from that exercise, we then have traits that we can then more easily target using the social channels, targeting tools that are available to us. In the beginning, like I said, we usually have to make some assumptions, but there are some great places that you can go to look for industry data. Facebook has a great audience insights tool. I can send the link we can get the link to people. I can put it in the chat. But you can go into the Facebook audiences tool. It's free for everyone to use. You can type in interests and it will give you, you can either target like the entire audience of Facebook, or you can target people that are just following your particular page. So you can zero in just on the people that are following you and perhaps your customer. Or if you're looking to expand that customer base, you can you can look at all of Facebook and see, it'll show you like the top age ranges. It's basic, but it's pretty cool. You can see like the pages that they're following, the interests the other interests that they're most likely to connect to. So I will definitely put that in the chat when we're done with this, because that's a great resource that you can get that initial information about your potential audiences or your current audiences. And then eventually, as you move forward, you're hopefully connecting with people, you're building your email list, and you might be able to get enough people where you can send them a targeted survey to learn more about them, and you can refine those avatars more closely. So then once we have that,
Randy, can I pop in and just ask a question? So I like building the customer avatars, but if you've been in business for a while, would you start with the why first and use that to drive your customer avatars, as opposed to just looking at your previous customers and trying to figure out who your most likely target is from what you already have been doing? Or
so the why, I think, of the business informs your messaging, but you have to get that messaging to people, and your universe isn't going to be everyone. And a lot of times that's what we hear is like, well, who do we want to connect with? And it's like, well, everyone we possibly can. The avatar exercise lets you zero in a little bit more on who those people are. Like, it may be, for example, we have a retail product that appeals to women, 25 to 45. But, that's a large segment of people and if you have budgets to reach all those people, that's great. But usually we don't, because we work with small businesses. So we want to narrow that down a little bit by interest. And by going through that exercise, looking at your current customers allows you to figure out what those traits are, so you can go out and find more people that look like that. And Facebook and Instagram make it easy for you to do that, because they have what's called a lookalike audience. So you can actually even take your email list. You can use your pixel. And again, this is why you can drill way down into these topics. And, I'm not here to give, we can talk a little bit about it if people have specific questions, but there's what's called a Facebook pixel. And you want to make sure that you're using that on your website, because that's how you track the behaviors of your current customers. And by doing so and figuring out what those traits are, you can go out and try to reach people that are similar to that, so that you're not trying to take your message and just throw it against the wall at people who you're trying to find the people that are going to be most likely to be interested in your brand and your message. And by doing that exercise, you are able to, more specifically hone in on that, I think. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you for that.
Cool. So and like I said, the why informs your message and the stories you're telling, and that's kind of where we are now. By when I say employ the tools, we're looking at the social channels, and for this particular conversation, we're looking at the social channels that are best going to serve our clients, and so this is where we make the plan. For us, it's very intuitive because we've been doing it for a while, and we mainly work in the local Louisville area, so we know the market pretty well. For our Touring Broadway customers and our arts customers, we also understand that it's very important to connect customers to the story of that particular show and to the venue that is producing that show. So it's still very much the same process. It's just in a different market. So the first thing when you're looking at employing the tools and making your plan is you need a goal. A lot of times that's sales, and a lot of people jump to that right away. But I would caution you to reconsider that goal because do enough people know about your business to go ahead and ask for that sale? I don't know. We try to determine that. For the most part, for most people, if you haven't been on social media and you haven't been telling your story, the answer is no, because they don't know who you are, they don't know what you're about, and if you've just discovered your why, they certainly don't know what that is. So we like to take a look back, or a step back, and figure out how to message that. Are we going to be doing video, which is very popular to do online right now? And we want to craft those messages in a way that is very authentic, that's very transparent about your brand. And we produce all of that, for our clients as part of the plan. We create a content calendar. We figure out when we're going to, when we're going to be talking about these things, how is it going to fit into the campaign? We also have other tools at our disposal, including, email. We try to get people in press and media. So we're looking at kind of the whole mix and finding out what works best and what fits best for the client and industry that we're talking about. The other thing I'll say is the world has changed dramatically in the last several months because of what's happening with COVID. And you may have had to change and pivot your the how and the what. You may be offering different products and services. You may be distributing those products and services a little bit differently. We work with restaurants, and obviously when everything had to shut down in the economy, we had been used to giving and talking about a product of a person having an in-person experience at a restaurant. Well, that's been taken away. People aren't used to getting takeout from this restaurant. So we had to figure out a way to tell that story, make people feel comfortable that they were going to get the same quality meal from that restaurant, very quickly. They were used to having in-person themed dinners. So we had to figure out how to do those virtually so that people could come and pick that up and still have that kind of togetherness. So in our business, things change very quickly and we have to adapt to the technology. So we learned a program called Ecamm Live. It's very similar to what we're using here, which, we were talking about that before, Webinar Jam, where you can bring on guests and you can still have that experience. We were doing Zoom dinners so that everyone was on the screen and everybody could, chat and interact. So, those are all reasons why people may not know what your why is or what's happening with your business. So you may just have to educate them about that. And that's kind of called a brand awareness campaign. We were able to reach new people during that time because, we were also very lucky because we could deliver booze and cocktails, and we had a lot of specialty bourbons that were not available anywhere else. So that got people engaged with us. So that they were having an experience coming to pick that up. So we were able to translate that to them to come back and pick up a meal and continue working that way. Plus people were really very much understanding that the small restaurants and businesses needed their support. So we were able to kind of latch on to that empathy also. So like I said, you might be looking at some brand awareness first before you're really asking for that sale. And that's where your why and your story is so valuable, because you can use that to create social posts, YouTube videos, blogs, emails, and even commercials if you have the budgets to give customers insight into who you are as a business and really try to connect with that public and that audience. So in the step before, you've just really delved deep into who that target customer might be. So now you can ask yourself, where do these people hang out? Before COVID, especially for our physical locations, for me, it was all about having people come in and having an experience in person, so that we could have that connection, we can have that interaction. When that went away, I think that principle still holds true, but we have to find them in a more virtual way. Is there a particular social channel that lends itself better to what you do? Is your product very colorful and visual? If so, then Pinterest might be a good place for you to showcase that. If you have a lot of variety and it lends itself to somebody that's decorating or looking for creative ideas. Does your target audience, is there a Facebook group that you can join to, as yourself, not as your business, to find out what people are talking about? What are their pain points? What are they needing to solve? And you can provide video how-tos or tips and tricks on how to do that. And you're not asking for any sale. You're just making yourself very aware, or you're making people aware that you're a resource and this is what you do, and you can do that for them. Are you good at adopting new technology? Like TikTok is a huge thing right now. I mean, people think that it's just for kids, but like I have a lot of older friends that just get lost in watching all of those videos. And if you are a outgoing, creative, funny person that can make a splash on there, like there was like this story about a dentist who's doing TikToks every day and he's getting tons of business just because it's of his personality. If you're good at figuring out new technology, the social media tools are coming out with new stuff all the time. And the number one thing I tell people is if you can adopt early that new product, like when IGTV came out, we were all over it and we got so much organic engagement because that's their new product is trying to compete with something else, and they're going to push your content out more organically when you're using that brand new product than if you were just doing what everybody else is doing. So that's another good thing to look at is to be aware of when these new products are launching. Instagram just launched Reels, which is trying to compete with TikTok, which is that short form video, and they're pushing, and like it's everywhere in my search feed now. So if you're good at that and you're using those channels, that will reach more of your followers than perhaps another static video or photo might. So just think, you can think about those things too. And so then this is where, when we're crafting these messages, this is where we test these messages. Like, is this copy working? Is this image working? Is this message point working? And we do that by looking at the engagement. Are people connecting with it? Are they liking it? Are we seeing questions come through on direct messages? And that can happen organically, but usually for us, we try to speed it up a little bit and put some money behind it. For me, it's much more about quality versus quantity of messages from a social media standpoint. For some clients, we post every day, some we don't post as often, and we might try to throw $10 or $20 behind it to kind of speed that up. If we don't get anything, then we know that that's not a message that's resonating with our customers. And that way you can kind of hone down and figure out, what kind of content people are looking for that are going to kind of fill your sales funnel. And they always say, you have to be testing constantly because things can change on a dime.
Hey, Randy,
Yeah.
Cynthia just kind of asked a good question right here. She owns a small art business, and what would you recommend for a content calendar cheat sheet for a launch for a small business doing it all in-house? And this is kind of what you're talking about now. How would you organize that?
So we use, as a small business also, if you don't want to pay, there are lots of tools that we use. We use Sprout Social and it has good organization, but quite honestly, we use Google Sheets. We feel that that's very flexible. It's very shareable. What I do is I create a spreadsheet that looks like a calendar. We're actually doing it today for 2021. We color code the social channels, and we fill it out usually a month in advance so that we know that we're hitting holidays that are important to our business, because there's a day for everything now, and there are tons of resources on the web that can tell you whether it's National Apple Pie Day, which has been very helpful for one of our clients. So we make sure that those are on the calendar. We plan a year in advance, then we plan a month in advance, then we plan a week in advance. And that allows us some flexibility that if something were to come up during that week, we can still insert it. But as I'm sure as a small business owner, if you don't plan, you don't do it. So many times we're like, oh, I'll just post every day and remember to do that. And then at the end of the day, your whole day's gotten away from you and you haven't done anything. And so you've missed that opportunity to connect with your customers. You have to make the time to plan that. Otherwise, just unless you're so disciplined, with your calendar. But I know that my days can get away from me. So we have to make sure that we've planned. We've kind of done that in 3 stages: the year, thinking about where we think we might want to do special promotions, where our hot spots are in terms of sales, where we need to maybe do a little bit more brand awareness. And then every month we're delving a little bit more specifically into topics. And then every week we're looking at the actual language for social posts and video, and making sure that we have time to get those to produce those videos and create those graphics and get all of that done. So I use Google Sheets. I mean, it's very, very simple and very easy. We're not so large that we can't manage that, but there are also a lot of good tools out there that can help you for not a lot of money. And some of them have free plans if it's just you that you're focusing on. But we have to work with 10, 15, 20 different clients that also have 3, 4 different social channels. So hopefully that's helpful. And I can certainly share a screenshot of what we use with the group after we're finished. But the cool thing is, when you get to this point, this is when you can be really creative, and you can really think about, if you've done all of this work, what your tone is, what kind of chord you're trying to strike with the public, and you can get as crazy or as wild or as fun or freeing as you want with your messages, with your videos. And that's kind of what we help our clients do, is to stand out. Sometimes it's just as easy. We have a client that's just telling stories, but they're really interesting. So when we push that out, we give it a title that's very vague, and we're getting a lot of feedback, and people are asking for more stories, or they're asking questions about this. And this is from the bourbon industry, which is really hot right now, as you know. So people want to learn more about that. They want to become bourbon experts, but they want to hear the funny stories of the industry insiders. So we're able to craft that. And it's literally just a cool guy sitting next to a fireplace with his, bourbon pick of the night, telling a funny story about, a famous celebrity chef that came into his restaurant, or how he almost got in a car accident going to his first barrel pick. So, these are things that all came out of our strategy sessions, because people want to know the owner of the restaurant, and they want to feel like that they're a part of that family, and they want to feel like that they're VIP when they walk in. So those are the things that we discovered as we go through the process. I'll also say, you don't have to do it all by yourself. One of the reasons we're so successful is that we're able to connect our businesses with other businesses, other organizations, and other people in the community, who are probably trying to do the same things that you are. An example of that is we actually didn't come up with it. We were approached by a company that says, they had a group of 6 retailers who wanted to do a giveaway. We all teamed up together and posted it on our Instagram. And the goal was just to get more Instagram followers with these similar retailers who are looking for a similar audience to follow them. Now, I wouldn't say a cattle, like a beef seller on a farm should pair up with a high-end boutique of ladies' clothing. You're probably not looking for the same audiences. But if you have, and you can identify and recognize other people in your industry, not necessarily competitors, but people that align with your business or complement it, you can create some really cool promotions and videos to kind of cross promote and draw upon each other's audiences, getting your message in front of people that may not have heard of you before. So that's kind of the last part of Social Centric, is we are not alone. We work with other agencies because we want to connect with their clients. We work with nonprofit organizations because we want our clients care about giving back to the community. I have a client that's working with the Kentucky Humane Society, and we're able to get on television because that's a story and a charity angle, and we're doing something good for the community. So maybe you're stronger together, getting together, and that kind of brings me to my last bonus tip, which is the press and media. I don't think people understand that this is kind of available to everyone. You know, I'm sure you see stories happen about your competitors or someone covering something in your industry. And one, it's great. It's a great way to tell that story because television is made for telling stories on the news. But two, usually they can post that content online and you can use that to tell your story on social media, and you didn't even have to create it yourself. So, you know, reporters that I work with and that I know and I've established relationships with, they love to hear from the general public. They don't like working with people like me necessarily because we're always bothering them about this, you know, this story. I feel like that. I'd like to think that we do a good job of not bothering them because I have a philosophy that I'm going to share with you, which is you have to have a story. You have to have a story to tell, which is why it's so important to do your why, because you can't just ask a reporter to do a commercial for you. They're not going to pick up, we're having this sale on this product on this day. It has to be more than that. It has to be of community interest. It has to be of value to their viewers. But honestly, and I've been doing it for a long time, and I'm lucky that I had a product which is touring Broadway and the arts that the reporters wanted to come see. So I was able to have that relationship. But that doesn't mean that you don't have a product or service that is of interest that you can invite them to come and try. But every so often we have to go online and refresh our list because the news media leave and come back, and we have to establish those new relationships. But if you've got something really cool and you saw a story maybe about a competitor, find out who that reporter is. All their contact information is on their website, or usually you can click to it right on the article on that story that you're viewing right there. Otherwise, you can go to any of the television stations in your market and look up the reporters and email them directly if you have something very compelling to do or compelling to tell them about your why, about why you're in business, about what you're doing, or that you're partnering with a charity or something like that. The other way is if you are partnering with a charity, maybe they have a media department, or you're sponsoring something where you can get your name out there. So I want to make sure that you know that, and you can use that media outlet to, you know, help tell your story so that you're not even videoing it yourself, and then you can share that content when it comes out. So you might just get featured on TV or in the newspaper or something like that. You just have to do a little bit of the legwork and make sure that you've got your story down so that you can tell that in a compelling way. And I can also maybe shoot you out a media alert template for that as well.
Yeah, I think all of us have tried to send out press releases and with minimal success. I know I have. So
yeah,
what are some more tips?
A little tip for that is, you know, yes, you want to give out enough information, but about what you're doing, but you need to boil that down into one or two sentences, which is kind of what we call our value proposition. And that needs to be like, they're going to read your headline and like the first two sentences of your press release, and that's it. You have to grab them in that amount of time. Then they'll find out more. I tend to keep my press releases and my media alerts very lean, because if they want to learn more, they're going to call me and find out more. And then of course I usually have to follow up with them. But if you can find that reporter that cares about your product or interest and get to them, you know, you might have a good shot of getting on there. And again, it's really just about telling your story in a compelling way. I probably wouldn't even, if I was a very small business, just getting into this, I probably wouldn't even send a press release. I would just send an email and say, hey, I noticed that you report on this. Would you be interested? Because this is our story, and we feel like that it's newsworthy for this reason. So, you don't necessarily have to even put together a formal press release to get somebody's attention. like I said, it's a long shot, but again, the reporters like to hear from their viewers and their general public, and you can even say like, I watch you every day on channel whatever, and you're so great, and I noticed you did this story. Would you be interested in talking about us in the context of this? So you kind of have to help them along. Of course, they're getting tons of emails per day, but if you do it right, you can cut through the clutter.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned. Well, what about like how persistent you need to be to do this? I mean, because I'm sure your first email is not going to get any response, but would you say what's a tip on that?
Well, it might. You're talking about for press. Your first email might get a response. I do know, and from my experience, especially if you're sending it to like the news desks, which are also available online, and that's kind of the general email box. It can be. What the reporters and my people always tell me is like, I could send that at 9 o'clock and it hits their meeting and nobody cares. I could send it at 2 o'clock, it hits their meeting, nobody cares. I can send it the next day at 9 o'clock. Oh God, this just came in because, again, so if it's something very specific and time sensitive, I would probably send it a little bit more often. But if you're just trying to get some interest in what you're doing as a company or your why, might space that out a little bit. But look at sending it at different times during the day because different assignment editors and reporters and crews are looking at that depending on when you send it. That's what I've learned.
I like that.
So that's kind of like the main overview. And like I said, I'd love to answer any more specific questions. I will tell you that a good resource for you for social media at marketing is Social Media Examiner. I am a member of the Social Media Marketing Society. I attend Social Media Marketing World. They have a lot of free videos and tips about all these things that I've just talked about and how to do them. There's tons of YouTube, instructional videos. I'm constantly trying to keep up with what the latest trends are, which is kind of why I exist. It's always our goal in my business to hold the hand of our clients because this isn't what they do. They don't, they're doing their business. They're trying to make sure that they're creating their product or, stocking their store or whatever it is that they're passionate about. We very much care about that, and we want to take the burden of social media marketing off their shoulders. Our clients are as involved as they want to be. For some clients, we don't even contact them. We've learned their business. We run with it. We answer all the questions. If something comes up, we suggest like, okay, we're doing videos this week. Here's what you need to prepare for. For other clients, they want to see like a memo of everything that's going out the week before it does so that they're in the know. So, but it is very much our goal to be integrated with our businesses and to kind of take that burden off of their shoulders so that they're successful and that they're achieving their goals and they can work on what they want to work on. It's very scary, especially the businesses that we tend to work with have been in business for a little while. They've had some success. They want to take it to the next level, but you have to invest in it just like anything else and you feel like you get what you pay for. And we also know that we have to earn the trust of our businesses. And especially when COVID hit, we had to somewhat adjust our pricing schedules so that they're perhaps not paying us as much at the beginning as they may be at the end of our contract, because we need to build that business so that they have the funds to pay us. So we're very much trying to put that message out about our company with this new rebrand and know that we care about your business. We want to work with you within the parameters that you can do things. We can do everything. We can do one portion of it. We kind of run the gamut with everyone. So with that, I'll open it up for questions. And thank you very much for having me. And I hope.
All right. Thank you.
Horribly long.
Hey, Tony, you there?
Yes, I am, Dave.
All right. Do we have any questions in the chat?
Yes, we do. Kelly Wasson, she says her company provides indoor air quality investigations, monitoring, and clearances for asbestos, mold, radon, so forth and so on. Our customers range from residential homeowners to commercial to construction. She says finding a challenge to find the right voice to write a weekly blog that will encompass all customers. Some blogs are self-dedicated to a specific client, others are broad enough to encompass all. She says, suggestions?
So yeah, that's another. So you're a B2C and a B2B business, it sounds like. So that's where your avatars, I think, kind of really come in, because not only are you looking for this particular type of consumer, you're also looking for this type of decision maker from the corporate side of things. As far as your blog goes, I feel like that is an opportunity to really educate people about what you do, because I don't know, and why is that valuable, and what should you be looking for? Here are the things that could happen if you were to have here are the signs to look for if you think you might have asbestos. Here's what could happen if you need us, because if this happens, it's already too late. I don't know. But that's an opportunity, I think, for you to really educate your public on the urgency, perhaps, and of having this particular service, so that you're monitoring it constantly, so that you're making people feel safe in their home or business. I mean, without going through our process, that's a pretty good why. You're giving peace of mind to people about the environment that they work or live in. So I would definitely be telling stories. If you're going to focus on a customer, I guess that would be a success story about like how you solved a problem, or how you swept into the rescue and cleaned something up, perhaps. But otherwise, you could also even feature businesses that you're working with, and maybe the good work that they're doing. That's, again, aligning yourself socially with another business. And it's not even about you. It's like, oh my gosh, we came in and we're helping this company clean up their asbestos problem. Look at what they're doing. It's fantastic. You're promoting somebody else and not making it about you. But yeah, I think it's more about educating people about your product and services that we don't know enough about. And it's probably very important that we know about it. Hopefully that's helpful.
Yes, great suggestions there. Jim has a question. He says, how effective are specials of the week campaigns with respect to being overkill?
Well, I very much like having people, I like doing things in a routine. If you have a special of the week, you can train your customers to know to look for that on social media. If you are consistent if you're putting it out at the same day, same time every week. Then what you can find out is when you're putting out which specials are resonating with your customers more. And once you do that, I'm not saying that you run that special every week, because then that's going to get a little stale, but at least you can plan and know that this particular special is going to give us a bump, and you can plan that in your content and your sales calendar throughout the year. Maybe you're a little bit slower in the summer months, and that particular special is going to give you that bump you need to make your sales goal that week. But I'm a big believer in, we love to do series, and the more consistent, the better. If you're telling your audience that they can expect this kind of video at this day on this time, then you're able to get more people watching, and then hopefully more people engaging. But really think about, when you're doing that kind of content, how can people engage with you? How can you have that conversation and make yourself available to respond to questions or to have those conversations too? You can even ask your customers, what special would you like to see next week? Do a poll, ask them what they want, and then give it to them.
Okay. So Randy, I have a question. Can we go back to the press release when you were talking about that earlier?
Sure.
So does it make sense to know the audience that you're trying to reach out to? Like if I'm trying to do a press release to WLKY and WDRB, should I make the press release centered to them, or do I give them the same general information?
That is a good question. One of the things that I recommend is that you watch the show that you're trying to get on to see what kind of information there. Like, so I over the years, and I have this conversation with producers all the time, the powers that be are always like, news, and I was like, who's telling them that all we want to see is hard news and terrible news and this death rate and this whatever? I recommend you watch the stations and see where your information might fit. If we're talking about the Louisville local market, Wave 3, I don't know if you've noticed, but they have local programming on now from 11 a.m. until 8 p.m. with only 1 hour of Days of Our Lives at 1 o'clock. That's not local programming. So they got a lot of content to fill. Don G's show Wave Country just moved to 2 o'clock. They have an hour to fill, and that is the community program. That's probably where most of your stuff's going to go on that station. If you have budgets to spend and you don't want to do a commercial, Wave 3 Listens Live, which is on at noon, is where you can tell that story, but that is usually paid. So watch the shows. I mean, watch your television station and see where your particular product or service fits, and then you can tailor your message to that particular reporter or producer.
Thank you.
And they'll appreciate that too, because they know that you've taken the time to really do your research.
Okay.
Well, just to follow on that, hang on,
Rick.
just to follow on that, we're talking about TV primarily, but are there other news outlets that you would recommend?
Oh yeah, your business publications, Business First. They're kind of all over the place. They do all kinds of stories. If you're opening a new store, they will cover it. If you have a new employee that's been promoted or something, they'll put you in the People on the Move section. The major daily is a little tougher, which is the Courier Journal here in our market. The alternative magazines and newspapers, sometimes they're pay to play, but you can get they're usually willing to work with you if you talk to them about what you're doing. But yeah, there are a lot. You can look at all of the different. There's the radio. The radio is the hardest because it's in my experience right now, if you're not spending money on advertising, they're not putting you on the radio. Public radio, maybe there's some smaller radio stations that might be looking for content. But I would also recommend looking for people in your industry that are influencers or bloggers online, and maybe you can connect with them because they're always looking for content, and especially the ones that are just kind of starting out and are trying to build their following. You can maybe help them do that and get in front of those audiences as well. So definitely taking the time to look around on your social media at the hashtags that you're using that are in your industry. You can see who's talking about that and maybe get in touch with them. And all you have to do is send a direct message to them and say, hey, I noticed you've got this blog. Here's what we're doing. Maybe you'd be interested in covering that.
So, Randy, I just thought you should know this. Larry Stewart says, no question but a comment about how many good ideas you've given him to help his audience find him as a transition life coach. So he says, thank you for doing this.
Sure. Thanks so much for saying that. I appreciate it. It is our goal to provide value to our community, and whether we do that, I mean, we work with a lot of nonprofit organizations and other organizations that are not paying us because we feel like it's important to put that product or service out, or perhaps we're helping them and eventually they will bring us on to get paid. But again, I feel like that we don't live in a bubble. We pay attention to what's going on in our surroundings, and we try to find ways to help out where we can. And I think that starts with what you're passionate about and what you're interested in. I'm sure as your small businesses, people are hitting you up all the time for donations for their charity auction or whatever. My big recommendation is figure out those top 2 or 3 causes that you care about. It's always easier to say to somebody, I'm sorry, that's a worthy cause, but this is what we care about. And that might align with your business. It might not. But either way, I feel like it's important for people to figure out what that is so that you're aware, and that's a great way to participate in your community.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions, Tony?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know if you all heard me earlier, but Larry Stewart, he says no question, but he gave a comment about how many good ideas you've given him to help his audience find him as a transition life coach. And so he says, thank you for doing this, Randy.
Yes, we did hear that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay. And then someone just asked about the recording, and yes, we will be sending out a replay via email.
It's usually watch your email about 4 o'clock. Usually it's about 4 o'clock in the afternoon when it comes out. So
should I can I go ahead and put this link in here? This is the Facebook Audience Insights.
Absolutely.
Link that I was talking about.
And Randy, someone did ask if you have any helpful links that they could get access to.
Yeah, I just sent you the Facebook audience insights. If you have a Facebook account, you can access this. We get it through Facebook Business, but I don't think you have to have that in order to get that. And then I'm going to type in Social Media Examiner. I gotta, let me just copy the link over here. Social Media Examiner. Really a lot of helpful tools.
Yeah. John says he's having.
And they have a podcast too that's really cool.
So John is saying that the link is not working.
Yeah, on the last one.
On the last one.
Facebook one.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It looks like it's all spelled right.
It's working for me.
Huh.
You have to have an ads account set up in Facebook in order to access that.
There you go. That's probably the problem. Yeah.
But I'm in personal, we do have Business Manager. This is kind of how we manage all of our stuff, but I'm in my personal. So,
yeah,
maybe you just haven't ever done an ad before and haven't set that particular part up, but that link should work if you have a ads manager set up.
Yeah. Other people are saying that they do, that is working for them. So
okay, good.
That. And then John
says he doesn't have Facebook. Yeah. So if you go in and just try to set up an ads manager account, you should be able to access that.
Yeah.
So we have one more question from Jim O'Neill.
Very dependent on the type of retail client. We
it's
have
quick service retail. He's like a quick service restaurant.
Oh, quick service restaurants. I haven't worked too much with quick service restaurants. We tried to. Is that I don't know the answer to that question because we don't have a lot of experience with that. We work with sit down restaurants. And like I said, we've had to really try to pivot to getting people who are not used to getting takeout from those restaurants to get takeout from those restaurants. And I know that we took a huge hit, but we were able to at least generate some of that, a percentage of that revenue. I think it was like 25% of the normal revenue that we were generating, which allowed them to keep some employees on. Beyond that, they were able to get, government loans and grants to also help out. And we're slowly building that back up, but we still have the 50% limitations. But I don't have data on quick serve restaurants because we haven't worked with those, but we'd love to and think it could be very helpful. But, the rate of return, the return on investment, is different for every industry. And it's not something that I necessarily try to figure out in advance, but we do try to create goals with our clients at the very beginning of the process, and those are adjusted as we move through our contracts. But it's for a lot of our clients, it's not necessarily tied to revenue necessarily. We're a lot of times we're hoping to eventually bring that to the forefront and to get that person to convert. But a lot of it is, generating those leads, building that brand awareness, and, moving them through that marketing sales funnel. There are a lot of great, if you are doing advertising and you are using the tools on Facebook, there are a lot of great analytic tools there that you can access. I don't know if you're selling online through your website, but generally there are fantastic analytic tools there that will let you know your rate of return if you're spending on money. That's why it's so important to get your Facebook pixel set up so that you can track that information. Facebook will, if you're running an ad or you're spending money on advertising, it will tell you what your return on ad spend is. And then you can kind of calculate and make sure that you can customize all the metrics so that you're looking at the data that you want to look at.
Thank you. Well, it looks like we're a little bit past 1 o'clock, so we better call it a day. I know people need to get back to work, and I know you do too, Randy. I sure appreciate your time today.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Tony, thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Dave. And Randy, you were awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you next Wednesday at noon. We'll be talking about business planning for 2021. So please join us for that. And everybody, have a great day today. Bye-bye.
Bye.